So just the title of our presentation today is From Inability to Expert, using personal motivation to prepare future reading teachers. We all three teach at Auburn University, Montgomery, and we are in the College of Education, and we teach literacy to pre-service elementary and early childhood teachers. Dr. Shelley, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Dr. Tami Shelley, and my background is K-6 education and then principalship. And then 5 years ago, starting right now, this is my 5th year, I came to higher ed. And we've been on this journey like Dr. Smith was talking about. All three of us have a little bit different background, but similar in the fact that we come out of the classroom of actually teaching children and being with children and trying to figure out the very best way to guide them and teach them in literacy. And it is definitely quite the journey. And so we kind of put our 3 journeys together, and that's what this presentation is all about, what we have to offer and what we hope is helping our pre-service teachers.
Right. So just to give you a little bit of background, what's going on in Alabama, the State Department adopted the Literacy Act. Says that all 3rd graders by the end of 3rd grade will be able to read on we'll be able to read on grade level. And this was, of course, adopted right before COVID. So like COVID has really just messed up everybody. But in 2019, that was adopted. And then the State Department is also looking and using and training our in-service teachers with letters, which is language essentials for teaching of reading and spelling. It's a 2-year course that Dr. Shelley and I and Mrs. Higgins have all 3 already gone through. It's very intensive training on the 5 essential components of reading, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And we also add the writing portion. Alabama is lucky to have the Alabama Reading Initiative, which is a team of experts that are from all over, and they travel into the schools and they help teachers with reading and literacy strategies as well. So that's kind of the background of what Alabama is doing to enhance our growth in reading.
Shelley, you're mute.
There you go. I just saw it had been muted. What we're trying to do is at the college level, which we call EPP, Educator Preparation Program. At that level, what can we do as reading faculty to make sure that we're getting as close to cutting edge for those that we're preparing to go into the field as possible? And it takes a lot because, as we all know, being a higher ed professor and doing research, and then also being teaching faculty that has a lot of field experience, it is quite a large calling. And it's one that we're pretty dedicated to. It's one I'm probably most proud of for Auburn University at Montgomery, is the fact that we want to be out in the field and to be as current as we can. Some of the points we've really tried to touch on at our university is, first of all, not being afraid to retrain and retool college and university reading faculty in science of reading. We all know that depending on when we went to college, and you can tell that I'm old, so I went a while back. If you went to certain colleges, they may have espoused certain teachings. And so we may not all be as vested or as knowledgeable in the science of reading. And so one of the things we all agreed upon was, no matter what our background was the idea of getting retrained and retooled a bit, at least to broaden our horizons and to understand better the true science of reading and the newest research out. And like Dr. Smith said, that for us meant kind of going back to school for 2 years and doing some homework for 2 years and attending a 2-year training called Letters. And that has really, we feel like, helped us a lot to not only just tie us together more, but also to kind of speak the same language that our teachers will get when they go out into the field or pre-service. Because the state of Alabama, as Dr. Smith said, has really invested in trying to also train the in-service teacher in the elementary classroom in the Letters training program as well. So it won't be just something they've heard at college level, it will continue as well. The second is really taking a long look at our field experiences and restructuring some of our coursework. And, sometimes that's a little difficult for us in higher ed. We get a little prideful on what we're teaching, and we're just like anybody that's vested in what they're doing and invested in it, we are territorial. So we had to kind of really put our heads together and say, okay, let's back up and take a really long, large view of what we're doing. And is it really accomplishing what we want to accomplish in field experience and also in our coursework? We made a lot of changes, and it's been a lot of work. I think that we will continue that work. It's an ongoing process, hopefully just like all learning is. So we're invested in that. The other was kind of woven into that. We needed to make some textbook changes and to support our science of reading, make some research materials that we have been using changes, and we did that in with our coursework change. Also, the last one, which is difficult to do, and we're still working on this, is making sure that we're with passionate educators in the field who don't mind sharing their personal literacy journeys in teaching with our students and with us, and that will allow us to become a part of their classroom to help us stay up to date and bring our students in for, we call those structured field experiences because we accompany them into the field. And again, that is quite the commitment, but we've seen just a great area of growth for us and for our students when we do that.
So a large part of our paper focuses on our personal growth and basically kind of where we were as readers from day one, from when we started kindergarten, number 4, up to what has changed in our beliefs. And it was really interesting to see the 3 different perspectives, especially mine coming from an area. I started my part off as just remembering in 1st grade, like I know, and I tell my students this all the time, I know without a doubt, in Alabama, where I grew up, we had what was called the red group, the green group, and the yellow group. And basically that meant red was like, hey, they need help. Green is you're good to go. And yellow was like, we're kind of in the middle. And I, without even knowing it then, what a red group was, and I knew I was there. And so when I was going through school, we didn't learn through phonics or phonemic awareness, or we didn't talk about fluency. We just basically memorized the words. And as I grew to become a teacher, I taught 1st grade, the opportunity to teach in 1st grade. And we had one of the ARI reading specialists in our area. And I remember going to her every single day saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea. And I don't know what's helping them. I don't know what phonics is. I can't sound it out. I read by memorization. And she kept telling me, Kelly, you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. And so when I started my letters journey a couple of years ago, it all made sense. And I feel so bad for my 1st grade students that I taught that year, wishing I would have known then what I know now. But it's been amazing to look back and to see my struggles as a reader. And then also be able to give those personal experiences to my students now and have them to reflect on how they were as a reader, and to possibly like be able to take away some of those misconceptions that they thought about reading or teaching reading. And it was neat to see that we're still growing using letters. And just our personal journeys. Dr. Shelley?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very similar in a lot of those respects, except that I am older than this young one here. So I graduated at a time that many of you may have read about. The reading wars were at a really big height at my time of graduation. And I graduated from our sister college, our larger college down the road, Auburn University. I was very fortunate to go to Auburn because it was a time of whole language, but Auburn really had chosen to make sure that we were educated in both areas, phonics as well as whole language. And so I was very blessed and very honored to be able to have both of those pieces of my puzzle together. I had learned back in my grade school, I can remember, like Kelly can, sitting and being, my biggest memory is being nervous about being called on in the reading group. I was scared I would not know the answer. And I think that's great to identify with, because we know our students are doing the very same thing. We want to set them at ease as much as possible. But I do remember some phonics. I do remember being taught that and having little items to hold and beginning sounds and ending sounds. So I remember having that. So when I graduated, that part was very familiar to me. So I knew that would work. But I also was born into that era of whole language at graduation, which was more reading, writing workshop, lots of rich literature in the room, lots of read alouds, which in essence, each one of those, there's nothing negative with that. And I think that that's one of the things that we have the opportunity to tell our students. It's really about how you use some of that based on what you select and based on the most current research that we have that really truly cites what makes the most movement in students in progress. Because there are a lot of these activities that we can choose to fill up a school day for literacy training. But what we want to teach our students and kind of equip them with is a toolbox for what are the very best ones to choose first, to fill up the time with first. And for me, those things kind of came hand in hand, and that kind of graduated in the 90s to the balanced literacy approach. That was kind of the new wording that came about. The part that I had a problem with, which I really kind of left an open gap, like Dr. Smith was talking about for me, were the readers that none of that worked for. What about the readers that could not decode, that could not understand the phoneme and grapheme correspondence, that could not segment words? What about those students? I did not feel like I was equipped with good tools for that. And there are quite a few students that fall into that category. For me, that's where letters was kind of my aha moment, like she was talking about. It really helped give me more understanding for what could be going amiss for those students and how to get in and try to help them better. So that helps me equip my pre-service teachers with some of what I kind of consider my missing little gaps, fill in some of those gaps for their reading instruction. I think overall, though, one of the things that helps me when I look back, and I tell our students this a lot, there are lots of strategies and things that you can incorporate in the classroom. And to me, the best thing is to stay open-minded, stay well-read on the research that is coming out. So you stay up on that and you can understand what your best choices are for students. I think when we become closed-minded or in one particular camp and are not able to read research with open eyes and open minds, that to me is one of the best things we can give our students, no matter what discipline we're in, is that idea of being a lifelong learner. And if you're in the elementary classroom, trying to stay up on what is current so that you are making the best selection for those hours and minutes of school time for those students. So Ms. Higgins is not with us, but like Dr. Smith said, she's a huge part of this. Her background is definitely classroom teaching and Alabama Reading Initiative trained and dyslexia trained. She brings so many positives to our program for us. And I think that's one of the pieces we're probably most proud of, again, is the fact that we're not that far removed from what we call the real classroom that we're preparing these pre-service teachers to go into. And it's something we kind of battle and fight to make sure we stay in them as much as we can and still do all of our other jobs and requirements at the university level.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I like my computer is stuck. You want to go ahead and start trying to wrap it up?
Yes, I'm trying to move. There we go. There you go. One of the things when we kind of looked at this, we thought one of the reasons we wanted to write the article, and Dr. Smith really was the impetus for the idea, is we forget when we're working on a faculty that 3 different journeys of experience and continued growth are really make up a solid investment into our pre-service teachers. And until people bring that to our attention, sometimes we forget about that, how very, very fortunate we are to work together and have the same beliefs of making sure that our pre-service teachers get the best instruction that they can, even if it means we have to do some studying on our own, and also making sure that we pass along to them the idea of lifelong learning as a teacher in a classroom. We talked a little bit about some of the things we think we bring to them. Experience with multiple types of reading instruction. We really work hard on that. Experience with what research says. Even if we question that, it's not bad to question things and discuss them. We feel like that's what university is. Designing coursework and field experience, it develops pre-service teachers. That's easy to say. It's a bit harder to do. And we work hard on that. Like she said, especially during this past pandemic time, it was a challenge. Still kind of remains that right now. Open-minded to training and updating. We have to really work on that and make sure we don't get our blinders on to what new developments or new ways of looking at the use of some of these strategies is for our students. Investing time into partner schools and in finding the best research-based teachers to serve as classroom teachers for fieldwork, practicum, and internship. That's hard. The only way we know to do that is to be in the schools ourselves, meeting teachers and being in their classrooms and really asking if they will partner with us. Our college, our university has a very strong partnership with area schools. We're very, very fortunate in that, but it is an ongoing journey for us for sure. Dr. Smith?
Yes, it is, especially since the science of reading is just now coming out in Alabama. So, you know, our state departments are doing everything they can to get and prepare our in-service teachers already. So when we come in and we say, hey, are you teaching these things? They might not have gone through what we've gone through. So we're getting to go in kind of ahead of the game and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what, you know, it's all about. So we love to give back to our schools, but we're super excited. You know, science reading is extremely important, and we're super excited that we are kind of on the forefront of preparing our pre-service teachers. You know, they might not be more specific to know what's going to happen in second grade, but they definitely will be very well aware of the instructional strategies they should use for each different parts of the reading. And to be confident, you know, that's ultimately the goal, is that, especially since I wasn't confident, like I want them to be confident and knowing that what they're doing is working. So we appreciate you guys listening to us, and we enjoyed putting this little piece together. And does anybody have questions?